Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am the stepson of Krypton,
And I am Mantis.
and today we are discussing. It's a couple of days late. We wanted to get out a little bit earlier, but unfortunately, we really only have one day to record, and that is James Gunn made some interesting changes to Superman Legacy. Most notably, it's not called Superman Legacy anymore. It is just going to be called Superman.
What? So he changed the complete name of it.
50%. He just hacked off the legacy. The Superman is still there, and that's what's important.
Legacy was just kind of is like we've talked about this before. It was just kind of weird to me to begin with. I'm happy that he just said it's just Superman.
Well, no, so the weird thing is the posters previously have shown what looks like the older comic book Superman and hence the legacy. And I kind of feel like he was just
Okay.
fucking with us now
God damn it, are you fucking with me?
because if you look behind me, this is the only image we've gotten of the suit. So we see the suit, it looks modernized, obviously. Not it's not like it's going to be the older style, but we also see fuck, I'm never good at that. The snowflakes. And he has said that obviously the Fortress of Solitude, they're filming in there right now. They're filming in Norway, I think,
Yeah.
for the Fortress of Solitude scenes. Uh,
Yeah.
so I don't know. So here's where I'm at with this, right? I feel like he's fucking with us a little bit because he's like,
I
hey,
agree.
guess what? Superman Legacy, we're showing the older comic of Superman and we're bringing all these characters and everything else. And then he's like, nope, we're going to hack off the Legacy and we got a revamped symbol and stuff. But with all these characters coming in, how is it just called Superman? That's interesting.
Good. It's a good question. I agree with you. To me, it makes more sense to just lead with Superman. And this was in one of the Screen Rant articles I was reading, and it was like they said the title Superman Legacy seems to imply that something like it's a sequel, like there was already a Superman before it, right? Totally get it. Like I can see that being a thing. And there's really not, but it's like there's like title of superhero, and this is not something specific to DC. This is something Marvel did a lot, like with Thor: Love and Thunder, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Like there were these things, the title restrictions are restrictions, the way they put the title on there that seem to imply that like, oh, this you should know this character. There's already been a movie out there about this specific Superman, and you should know what's going on, which is not the case. Um, and we kind of talked this in another Superman movie. There's been a lot of additions and or cast for the movie, and you're right. There are a lot of other superheroes and characters in this movie. It's a lot for the first introduction to a quote unquote new Superman, right? Um, More than any other Superman movie has ever had for the first introduction to the character of who's going to be playing it now in a new. I say the new Superman. It's like I keep resetting it because there's been so many. It's like okay,
True.
who we introduce it in this movie, right? Like you know,
My thing is though, like if let's say you took Man of Steel and you just called it Superman, makes sense, right? But because of you said you're not doing any backstory, like he's not doing an origin story to Superman in this, and you've added, I mean, you've got Guy Gardner, you've got Mr. Terrific, you've got all of these different heroes, and Lex Luthor's going to be in it, and they also just announced, I'll let Mantis tell you about that here in a moment, the villain of this movie. You're like, where does the legacy portion come in, right? And I got you thinking, you're like, okay, they must be doing this, and then he just cuts that off. You're like, okay, now I'm fucking confused. What are we doing here?
yeah. It's a bit jarring, and again, it's early. They just like you said, they just started filming. There's plenty of time to change the name. The name most of the time doesn't lead to what's going on in the storyline. Again, even Legacy was so vague, it could mean whatever. Like I know in one of the videos we did, we kind of attributed to they're kind of doing the golden age. They're leaning into that of Superman, like the historic version of Superman, like OG, right?
Yeah.
Um, So if he's going away from that, that's fine. Like quite frankly, just like most video games and like superhero movies, I don't care what the fuck you call it. If it's great, then it's great. I don't care what the fucking name is. Like I don't really care. It's great. It's great. If it's good, it's good. Um, in this one, he decides to cut that legacy off of it, which I know kind of people were talking about. They need to look towards the future of the character and not kind of delve in the past. I kind of tend to agree with that. Mainly, it's more selfish reasons where I don't want to see another origin story of Superman. We all have seen this shit. And the legacy name kind of tends to people who don't know what's going on in the movie or listening or watching to our videos that have discussed this type of thing. Or following releases of James Gunn or following the news, that legacy really isn't about what happens in the past. However, the title does kind of just like convey that emotion and that thing. So could be they just wanted to cut that off and say, hey, we're looking towards the future. This is going to be all about the how Superman fits into the overall DCU, right?
It just seems because, like, if you cut it down to just the word Superman, you kind of think it's going to be a solo movie with just him, right? And
Yeah.
we know there's all these other actors, all these other
Yeah.
characters coming in. So that's where it's kind of weird, right? Because then it's like, are they going to only show up as cameos real quick? Like, and this is kind of like, I feel like he's doing this on purpose to keep us guessing. Because exactly what we're doing, we're like, dude, what is he doing? Like, are they
Yeah.
just going to now show up as like little gimmicks real quick, like mentions?
Who
Like, what's
knows?
going to happen? And you're like you're stuck. You're like, well, that doesn't make sense. What about this? So I think this is exactly what he wants, right?
Yeah,
Now,
it is. I think you're right. I think he excels in the fringe areas. He did with in the MCU with Guardians of the Galaxy, very fringy, right? Like superhero type stuff. Very fringe. It's not mainstream superhero. He kind of did with the Suicide Squad in DC. Very fringy comic book or comedy like type elements with that. Very fringy, not mainstream. This will kind of be his first kind of delve into mainstream. And maybe he didn't feel comfortable making the movie completely about Superman. Maybe he wanted some comic relief. He wanted some of those because we talked about before, like I bringing in Nathan Fillion as, and I forget, god damn it, who it's not Hal Jordan.
Guy Gardner.
Yeah. I love this move. I'm a big Nathan Fillion fan, not just from Firefly, but also from Destiny, as Cade Six. So I love him as a R.I.P. Cade Six. I really do like that casting, and again, he's the only main member of the cast that I know. Um, but I like that idea. I like him bringing in these other characters to kind of facilitate some of the other stuff. If he's going to keep Superman true, like I think maybe that's kind of where the Man of Steel movie, and I love Man of Steel. I think maybe he's trying to differentiate his version of Superman movie from Man of Steel by bringing in these other characters, a lot of them from the very beginning. And as you had alluded to, they kind of have they've released they cast someone for the villain of Superman.
No, I
Um
didn't see. I
and
know the villain they cast, or the idea of where it's headed, but I didn't see who the actual person is they cast. Do you know who that is?
I it's hard to pronounce her name. But
Fuck, I'm not gonna do it.
Maria Gabriela de Ferraria. That's as close as we're gonna get. It's the
Really,
last
really.
yeah. Maria
Yep,
Gabriela de
Dave.
Ferraria, I think.
We gotta have 4 names. Like, all right. I mean, touche. Um,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. It's fine. I mean, and she's kind of hot, quite frankly, so she can have as many names as she wants. It's fine.
I haven't seen a picture of her. I'm looking.
Yeah.
Eh,
She kind of looks Kristen Stewarty.
which
Yeah,
a
yeah.
little
Oh
bit.
yeah,
Just
you can
wait,
find her.
wait. She's looking there. She kind of got a little,
Yeah.
yeah, a little But here's the interesting thing, and this is what I love about what James Gunn's doing. Like, nobody, and it even says, because I know the article you're referencing, because um, she's going to be playing the villain, the engineer. All right. And it says
Yes.
he's skipping over big time villains like Brainiac, Bizarro, Doomsday in the last 15 minutes, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. General Zod, because like, don't get me wrong, I like it, but we've seen General Zod. General Zod to me at this point is like Lex Luthor. You can
Yes.
be a secondary villain somewhere, but I'm done seeing you as the primary villain. We've had multiple times of it. Like, let's get something new. So I kind of love that he's going with, not only is he going with a kind of more obscure villain, they aren't triple A tier villain in there, but also
Mhm.
because her whole thing with the kind of merging with the nanotechnology and everything else like that seems more current, right? Because we're moving closer and closer into
AI.
that, and yeah, AI, but also if you like with
Where'd that come from?
It's nanotech. You like it?
he's like, it's nanotech. You like it, and you're starting to see that more because that's more comic booky, and
It
we had
feels
this discussion. Do you remember where I said, I love Iron Man's suit in Iron Man 1 when it's being bolted onto his body and he can't even get out of it? And you're like, well, yeah, but in the comic books, they have the nanotech style type suits. And it's true, right? But
yeah.
we did a video. I know most of you watching did not watch, where we talk about the different effects and what practical. Now we do have a complete other video about practical effects versus CGI, but we've done several videos where we talk about it. I like the practical look where it looks like it's a real thing. However, comic books go beyond that, right? So nanotech is that evolution of, yeah, you need to start seeing shit just material wise. So
Yeah, I here's the thing. I think what he wanted to do is not bring in a major villain at the beginning. I agree with this. You want to make an easy, you want to throw a softball, right? If you want to throw a softball at your superhero to get that ground laid, right? Like he's the bad motherfucker, right? Like you wouldn't, it'd be like again in Eternals just having some fucking giant uh celestial show up. It's just like you wouldn't do that. Or like we bitched about in Batman v Superman, in which I don't care what you think in the comments. It was a dumb decision to put Doomsday at the end of that fucking film. It's just stupid. In this one, you're introducing a lot of other DC comic characters, like we talked about Guy Gardner, Hawk Girl, Mister Terrific. You're introducing all of these other characters to help Superman. I'm assuming at the beginning, kind of figure out what he's doing. Because again, we're not talking about Superman when he's a kid, and it's not Superman when he's established. It's kind of the in between, right? It's they're going to do him as he's not.
Superman year 2.
Yeah,
It's
he's a
like
fucking
Robert Pattinson's
teenager.
Batman.
He's 20, right? Like he's 20. Like that's what I envision, right? Like David Cornsweet, he looks young. You don't have to play a 20-year-old. Like he could be in his early 20s easily. That's kind of where I feel like they're going with it. And to introduce a villain that one, not many people know about, hasn't been in a movie at all, and you get the cool techie stuff that could cause him problems early in his maturity as Superman that he may need help with, right? Like you have it's again, you mentioned it's nanotechy. It's like Terminator. Like that's the way that the article describes of the engineer, right? Like it's very T1000y. So I'm here for that. Like that's going to be cool. It gives him to stretch the legs on some CGI stuff. It lets Superman be vulnerable. It lets the other characters help him out. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, no. I was just agreeing with what you're saying there because it's all good points. Because when you talk about Doomsday or Darkseid or something, it's just brute force attacks. Like when Superman was helping Justice League their fight off Steppenwolf. It's just brute force power versus, if he comes into it thinking, "Hey, I'm this super powerful being," right? You kind of get a little cocky, a little over I don't want to say overzealous, but you get this kind of inflated, like I can take on all this. So you come up with this genius criminal that's using, cutting edge technology. You realize your brute strength doesn't really account for it. That's not going to be the deciding factor, right? You got to be smarter. And it's kind of like we talked about with Robert Pattinson's Batman and even James Bond with Daniel Craig in Casino Royale. They're not at their peak form right now, right? They got that
Mhm.
way by these are the events that led them to become the superhero they are, right?
They're cutting their
You don't
teeth, right? They're
Yeah,
cutting their teeth on these villains, right? Yeah.
and I think that's a great starting point because again, if you started out with Doomsday or Darkseid or something, like again, we talked about with the James Gunn avoiding the problems of the MCU, right? That crescendo, right? You're starting in
Yeah.
the fucking basement if you're starting with the engineer, but it's a great place to start. And for those that want we need the woman in power, she's a great female, and if
Yeah.
you do it right, she could be a great female villain, powerful villain that
Yeah.
helps kind of put Superman, it helps him grow as a character, and that's what you want to see, right? You want to see that arc. um so it's a very interesting choice.
Yeah, I was not who I was expecting at all. Again, like I thought they were gonna do he was gonna do something the same old thing with like Lex and here and there and like again, I don't mind Lex being in the movie as a cameo here and there, but we talked about this before where the thing that makes Lex so formidable to Superman is his intellectual IQ, right?
Do you know why the number 200 is so vitally descriptive to both you and me? It's your weight and my IQ. Now think, people, think!
It's not brute strength. You like Superman could just literally beat the shit out of him, right? Like it's literally nothing about that at this point in the storyline. Again, you get into Injustice and stuff where he's got a suit and he's kind of more mech, more machine than man, with Darth Vader type stuff. But it's like at this point, it wouldn't be much of a challenge to him, even in his younger state. It doesn't make sense to bring him in at this point. I like the fact that they would bring, and again, it doesn't. It's a woman actor. It's a woman villain. That's fine. It's fine. Who cares? It's what was written. That's fine, right? You know, and you bring in a strong. I like the idea. It's very intriguing to bring a strong female villain again with Man of Steel. You kind of got that with Freya, right? Like it was kind of there, but
Feyora.
she wasn't the main Feora, sorry. Yeah, Feora. She wasn't the main villain. Main villain, I say because Zod was the main villain. Again, you touched on this. We don't want the same shit every time, right? Um, I think Feora like it's fantastic. It's fantastic. But this, you just it's I like the idea of a T1000 villain that is gonna Superman's not going to know how to deal with it. I say Superman is Clark Kent. Like the young Superman's not going to know how to deal with this. He's going to need the other characters, the other characters we mentioned to kind of help him through this. It's introducing the quote unquote part of the Justice League a little early. It's fine. Not opposed to it. And it's not going to be the Justice League in this movie. It may be a couple of other heroes that kind of show him the ropes and say maybe some suggestions here and there. Who knows how he does it?
To be fair, because even with Guy Gardner isn't the number one Green Lantern, right? I don't know how you're gonna
Yeah.
do that, but he's not the number one Green Lantern over Earth, or he wasn't the original. He's not the OG one. So I feel like you're getting like some of the backup Justice League. You're not getting any other powerhouses. I think the only other powerhouse you really have is whatever cameo Supergirl's gonna play, right? So I feel like you're getting a lot of the additional help. Again, that's maybe going to help, it's pre-Justice League days. They're helping sculpt how he is and getting him to think different and just not use his abilities because, again, you're talking about nanotech and things like that. So I'm
Right.
interested to see where they're going to be able to take it. Uh,
Yeah.
and
I I love this. I love this edition of the engineer. I think it's it's a thing. It's new, right? Like it feels like they haven't gone in this direction with Superman before. It'd be like Brainiac to an extent. I know they did Brainiac in a couple of things, but not in a major movie. And this is kind of leaning in that kind of direction. And I like going like with the engineer in this instance. I think it's a good villain. You like I said, you want a softball at the beginning, right? You want a softball for your first villain in a Superman movie. You just do. You don't want him to be fighting some big motherfucker.
half the city's destroyed and people are pissed off. Yeah, like
Yeah.
I think he's doing a great. I think it's a great move. But let us know down in the comments what you think. How do you feel about this with the engineer? Maybe this is new. This is new for you. You didn't know, and you can go Google and get more information. We will do more information on the engineer. We just kind of wanted to touch base on the fact that first
Mhm.
off, he hacked away half the title. They showed what the costume's going to look like, so we're getting some more information. The engineer, who the villain's going to be, just came down. So let us know so far what you think about the decisions James Gunn's making, uh, because they're kind of radical, right? They're kind of they're
Yeah.
they're they're
They're
they're kind
fringy.
of going all over the
They're
place.
fringy. They're fringy. And
They're
it's what he
fringy,
does.
not cringy. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
so
Exactly. It's he again, like the article said, pulling weird characters out of thin air and making them huge names in pop culture is kind of what James Gunn does. So
mhm. Look at Peacemaker.
kind of yeah, it's right up his fucking alley. So like I'm cool with it. It's it's in his wheelhouse.
So we will see. And if
Yeah.
you guys have made it with us so far, definitely consider giving this video a like and subscribing because really at an angle now. Like, what am I? Is it? I'll make it move. Don't think I won't on the subscribe button. All right. But consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel because we're gonna stay up to date with all of the James Gunn news. As well, we like to thank all of our newest subscribers as well as our old ones that have been with us from day one. Definitely comment down, below how you feel about this. Um, uh, hopes and dreams, man. What's James Gunn doing? Are you excited? Are you scared? Let us know.
Yeah, is he going the right way here? Is he flirting with disaster? Right. I tend to believe again. Final thoughts here. I know we've kind of made this kind of a section on our videos. My final thoughts on this is I'm excited about this kind of change. Again, the name I really didn't care about it, but it makes sense now with kind of hacking that off and then leaning into this fringe area of characters that he's bringing in. Again, not talking about this particular Justice League characters like Hawk Girl and uh, Guy Gardner, but more specifically the villain. I really like the fact that he's grabbing someone on the fringe areas of a Superman villain that maybe not very many people know anything about. I like that idea. So
I'm gonna name this video Superman Fringy, not cringy. That's gonna be the
yeah,
name of this fucking
exactly.
video.
It's exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. Yep.
All right, guys. I think that is going to wrap it up for because I've definitely given my final thoughts on that. And you've got Mantis now. That's going to wrap it up for us here on this episode. Until then, we will see you on the next one.
Later.